Okay. Gusto na ba eh?
Kailang busy ka ay sa work usahay lagi. So,
Itong system update ninyo, di ba?
oh, sa kliyente man.
Kliyente. Pero okay na siya.
Okay na karon. So muna nga dili kay ko busy pero katong last few weeks kay
Grabe ka busy.
amo na
Right?
grabe ka busy niya pag katong the week after that thing na amog yung gibuhat napay daghang kay mga troubleshooting mga extra nga ataya lagi. Apoy kayo. Amok. Abi ni Mug ay tungod COVID dili kayo. Grabe sa mo tinuon kay
Grabe bitaw ba eh? It's been kanigid na the amount of stress that people are experiencing these days are talaga unprecedented.
Oo.
No. Grabe jud. I sent you the link by.
Okay. Let me wait Samtang ako gibutang eh.
Sige ko tanaw sa US elections ba? I've been stuck watching the updates. Good thing if you go on YouTube, you can watch all the streaming from all the different all the US channels like NBC, ABC, Fox.
Yeah.
Bay murag mo daw si Biden bay.
Si Biden may
No?
Actually bay mas mayon tatog si Trump na lang kay dili kay mo samok ba, di ba kay pakilamero makayang mga Democrat. Bisag mga tao ba nga actually ideologically more Republican gani ang uban mga tao pero actually generally more on the Republican side jud gusto na. Pero kuan lang ba kanang
Pinoy mga Phil-Americans mas Republican leaning man kinadagan sa
I mean sa economics lang hinuon actually ang main kuan ako. Pero ang main thing is sa sa US, wa man koy pake kayo. Sa tinuod lang, wa koy pake. I don't care kay wa man tas US, di mo ko amerikano. Pero ang gawa sinuon, ang bentaha kang Trump kay dili siya manghilabot. Okay, different di ba?
But I was thinking also kay of course biased kay ang relationship ni Trump and ni Digong. Warag okay ba?
Okay,
do your thing. I'm not gonna bother you. But at the same time, I think he's given as much as he can already. He's given us the 4 years na way interference ba? Like relative interference coming from the US.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a year and a half lang naman si Digong. What can the opposition do or what kind of damage?
That's true.
Diba?
That's true.
Yun.
Karon, I think at this point, the Philippines should really start now just focusing on constitutional reform. It can be done. To be absolutely honest, it can be done.
Sige, bye. So good na tabay. So good na tabay. Alright guys, welcome to Istoryang Futbolero. Merong nag-aabang na sa ating comments section. Nag-aantay sa Istoryang Futbolero at finally we were able to get hold of Orion. My name's Ron Poblete. I'm your host for Istoryang Futbolero. My co-host for tonight is Orion Perez Dumdum, founder of Correct Movement. Ryan, bye. Welcome back.
Thank you. Busy kita sa trabaho, manay problema sa hype. So,
lisod kaning mga importante kay sa iyang kumpanya ba? Kay dagang ginapabuhat.
Di ba kilala yung kwarta ba kay di man ta dato ba di pares ubang tao nga anak mas dato may problema di kinala mga trabaho ba.
we have to earn our keep, di ba?
We have to earn our keep, di ba?
So let me welcome some of our viewers, early birds, si Roy Sequoia. Sabi niya, hey, futbolero na. And si Faye Fresco, Presidential System Pamor. Nagkakagulo na sila.
Nagkakagulo na.
Oo, tama. So ngayon, yung papag-usapan namin ni Orion basically is related to what's happening in the US because the election is not yet over. Although, Based on what I was able to check out the numbers, kaya may bilangan pa eh. Kaya natagalan itong eleksyon. Usually kasi sa Amerika, 24 hours lang, Orayo, no? Meron ng
Oh
result.
yeah, less than 10 hours. Yeah, less than 24 hours.
Less
May
than
resulta
24
na.
hours. But now kasi dahil sa COVID, maraming mail-in ballots. So yung
Yes,
mga
yes.
karamihan sa mga Amerikano hindi naman karamihan siguro the Democrat side who are following the basic protocols of the government. They didn't go to the polling places. They sent their votes, their ballots to the precincts. Kaso lang, it took some time kay daghan kaayo. I mean, record-breaking daw ang mga number of votes that came in for this election. For both Republican
Both
and Democrat,
sides. Yeah, yeah.
from both sides. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden's vote count at 73,496,027 is the highest of all presidential balls in the history of the United States. So pinakadako grabe daw gid ang grabe ang mga botante for 2020. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the situation in America right now. So what we want to discuss, ni Orion, is we want to break down a little bit with the little time that we have, the presidential system, which is the current system of the United States. And so happens that we also have the same system. Ang difference lang gid, Orion, we have to remind the people who watch our program that in the United States, it's not straight up presidential. The way they do their elections there, they have an electoral system. They have an
Electoral college. Yeah.
diba?
And it's
And
not college as in school, huh? It's college. Actually, the word college means a coming together of people, a group of people. College. That's why they
right.
say collegial. It's a collegial decision, meaning it's a decision arrived at by a group of people. So
Yes.
college actually means a group of people. And
They're
that's
called,
something.
delegates, Orion, no?
Yeah,
Meron each
you can call them electors. You call them
electors.
electors, and they're
Mhm.
members of an electoral college.
Mm.
And the word college there is similar to the Vatican College of Cardinals. So College
Oh.
of Cardinals. When you say College of Cardinals, all the cardinals magkumpul sila, magsasama-sama sila, 'di
Mm.
ba? The College of Cardinals is all the cardinals coming together and then acting as an electoral body.
You're right.
So that's where the word the electoral college is also actually based on that concept of the College of Cardinals. The College of Cardinals is an electoral college for the
Mm.
Catholic Church in choosing the Pope.
Mm. Right. So yun ang
That's what
similarities
it is.
sa Vatican
Similarities
in,
nila.
in the United States. Dito sa Pilipinas kasi mga kaibigan, boboto ka for president. Tapos bibilangin yung boto mo with all the rest, and then yung kung ano yung numero that they will arrive at the end of the counting, sino yung pinakamalaking boto, yun ang panalo. Sa Amerika, iba. For each state, people will vote, and then at the end of the counting, kung sino yung may pinakamalaking boto, yung mga delegates or yung mga electorates na sinasabi ni Orion,
Electors.
they will give their votes to the candidate with the most votes. Di ba? Tama ba, Orion? Ganun yung
So,
di ba?
so actually, this is how it works. No, this is actually
Okay.
how it works. So, every state plus Washington D.C.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because Washington D.C. is not a state, but it's treated like a state in the Electoral College. Okay, originally Washington had no vote. They had no Electoral College electors. They had no delegates there. So before it was all 50 states. Now it is all 50 states plus Washington D.C.
Right.
Okay,
The
now
District of Columbia.
the District of Columbia. So what happened now is every state plus Washington D.C. what they generally have is the number of congressmen plus the number of senators. So if you're if your if your
Mm-hmm.
state, for example, like California, for example,
Mm-hmm.
California is a very, very huge state in terms of its population.
Yeah, they have 55, diba?
That's
Electoral
why they have
votes.
55,
Mm.
because the formula there is that for every certain number of people, you have you have one congressman. So
Okay.
that's why in California they have so many districts, because they have so
Mm.
many people. So they have a census, and then they will divide the area into districts,
Districts. Mm-mm.
and then each district has one congressman. Now, the
Okay.
number of congressmen that you have plus the number of senators that you have, that's the number of electors that you are
Ah,
entitled to. So,
okay. Okay, okay.
California,
Mm-mm.
California has 53 congressional districts. They have 53 congressmen
Mm.
and
Oh,
two
okay.
senators,
All right,
right?
all right.
So that's
So,
why 55.
so so how did they arrive at the kasi when I watch the news, no, ang assumption ko, kasi they're all like waiting for like the number of votes. They're counting the number of votes that came in, including the
Yeah.
mail-in votes. And once they're finished with that, whatever number they arrive, the one with the highest number of votes. So you mean those who are given the task of giving their kumbaga electoral vote will now vote for that candidate who has the highest
They will
number.
only
Um,
vote in December.
sa December pa.
December pa. Sa December pa sila magvo-vote.
Ah,
Actually, what happens is we are just counting how many electors from which party win. So basically, it's like
oo.
this.
Oo.
Ang If you want to run as the if you want to run as candidate for the Republican Party, okay, firstly you have to become the standard bearer of the Republican Party. Similarly, the other guy from the Democrat side also has to win, diba? Now, those two parties, they have a huge machinery in all of the states. So
Hmm,
they now have to register electors in each of their state. So
okay.
the same number of congressmen that they have, they plus two senators, they have to register. Now, oh, this person is going to be these people will be our electors for the Republican Party. The other party will also say, oh, these people are our electors from the
Mhm.
Democrat side.
Okay.
So, if the Republican Party wins, kahit just a
Margin.
small margin in that state,
Uh,
then the winning party is the Republican Party, and therefore, the people who will become the electors of that state are the
dibs.
electors from the Republican Party.
Kumbaga di have dibs. Sila nga na magbuot kung
Sila nang
kinsa.
magbuot.
Ah,
Yes.
ah,
So
mm,
so so the state's electoral college or electoral contingent for that state will be composed of members of the Republican Party.
okay.
And then in another state, probably it's a Democrat, or it's the Democrats will send their own party. This is why it is hard for a third party or a fourth party to win. Because
Mm,
usually, because if you want to become a candidate for president, you need to have electors from your party.
mm,
Therefore, you need to have a machinery, an existing machinery
mm,
in all of the states, and not just any state. In all of the states, and within each state, every district, because
mm,
the electors have to come from districts. They have to be
mm.
registered in each of the districts. So, for example, see Hillary Clinton, for example, because she's a
Ah,
senior member of the Democratic Party,
mm,
she is an elector in New York. She's registered in one of the districts in New York. She is an elector in New York.
Okay, so Orion, clarification. It doesn't mean that if the electorate doesn't necessarily have to be the congressman Or the
No, no.
senator? No.
So,
Ano lang
so
sila,
the
meron
way
tayong elector per district, kumbaga.
may elector, so ang style sa USA is para silang parliamentary, but so may parliament, may ano ka, may congress ka na, pero may electoral college ka pa. So
Okay.
parang ang difference kasi in a parliamentary system is your electoral college is also your legislature.
Right.
Double duty kayo. So
Mm.
mas sulit ang parliamentary kasi gumagawa na nga ng laws yung parliament, sila rin yung nagpipili sino yung magiging prime minister.
Okay.
'Di ba? So double
Meron akong,
duty. Ang ginawa
may
sa
question.
US, pinag-split nila. See what
Ah,
I'm saying? Split
sa
nila.
atin,
And the
ah,
rules for the electoral college is hindi ka pwedeng maging part ng electoral college kung ikaw ay kongresista. See?
okay.
So
So, ano
parang hindi
yung,
ka pwede
kumbaga yung role ng electorate, tama ba, electorate? Yung
ng
the person,
electoral college, you mean?
yeah, the member for the electoral college,
Yeah.
separate siya from the actual congressman who represents the district.
Yes. Yes.
So the purpose of the only job of the member of the electoral college is for the election. Pag
Yes,
wala ng
that's the only.
election,
Wala na
that's the
siyang
only
trabaho na iba.
wala silang trabaho. And
Wala na siyang trabaho.
it hasn't happened in the history of the US that they actually voted for the opposite candidate. Kunyari, nanalo ang
They
Democrat.
sometimes do. Oh, so yun yung tinatawag nilang faithless elector. So
Ah.
ganito yan. So
So nangyari na yun before?
nangyayari yun a few times. It happens a few times, but usually it's a very rare instance. Kasi
Mhm.
ganito yan eh. You are yung member yung mga electors kasi they are card carrying members of their party.
Of their party.
They're not ordinary masa na tao lang, no. They are members of their party. So
Mm.
the Republican Party, they have their set of congressional candidates, and they also have their set of electors, electoral
Mm.
delegates. Okay?
May isa akong question, Orion pala. Pag kasi sa Amerika, 'di ba, pag when you vote for, kunyari, kung card carrying Democrat ka or Republican, sa election usually the entire slate is all Democrat or Republican, 'di ba? Does it ever happen that the voter will go, okay, I'll vote for a Republican governor, pero ang aking congressman Democrat? May nangyayari
May
ba
mga
ganyan?
taong ganyan. May mga taong ganyan. May mga taong ganyan.
So nangyayari din pala yun, na hindi sila straight party.
May mga ganyan, but okay, so there are people who are there are ordinary people and there are people who are party stalwarts, okay? So the party stalwarts, they are usually straight ticket voters. So parang they will only vote parang everything straight Democrat or straight Republican. There are people like that na yun yung mga diehard na And ang balota sa US, meron siyang option na yung sa pinaka-start, meron siyang option na gusto kong botohin lahat ng para bang X, i-shade mo yung Republican. Tapos yun na yun. I-shade mo Republican, lahat ng Republican doon sa yun yung panalo.
Okay.
Yeah, just wait lang.
Okay, sige, bye. Anyway, while Orion's doing something, let me, ayun, kasi I wanted to ask you, Orion, kay may case, I don't know if it's Wisconsin, na yung electoral vote, kasi parang this was like a day and a half ago. They were
okay. So I'll explain also. Okay. So out of the 50 states plus Washington DC, you have 2 states that do not follow the winner takes all rule.
Oh,
okay?
Kaya pala may isa.
There are 2 states. There are 2 states.
Isa.
One state. So one of them is Nebraska. The other one is Maine.
Nebraska yata yun. Tama,
Okay.
oo. Okay.
Nebraska and Maine, the way they work is instead of looking at the statewide vote, okay, instead of looking at the statewide vote, sino yung nanalo doon sa loob ng state, yun yung makakakuha ng lahat ng mga electoral votes. Sa kanila, iba. Ang gagawin nila, per district. So, mas granular sa kanila. Parang mas parliamentary system sila doon sa kanilang lugar. So, ang mangyayari doon, doon sa distrito mo, kunyari, let's say there are 5 districts. Sabihin natin 5 districts. Okay? So, there will be 5 separate elections. 5 separate elections. Pag dito sa distrito na ito, nanalo si Trump, edi yung nanalo si Trump, kahit konti lang yung kanyang margin in that district, yung particular district na yan, ang kanyang electoral vote mapupunta doon kay Trump. Tapos dito sa kabila, kung nanalo si Biden o di si Biden ng so ganon. So split, pwedeng magkaiba. But in the other states, it's winner takes all. So even if konti lang yung pagkapanalo ni Biden dun sa isang all, say in the case of let's say in California, although California landslide si Biden dun eh. But in California, for example, let's say may lamang malaki ang lamang ni Biden kay Trump, no? Panalo si Biden. Ang mangyayari diyan, all 55 go to Biden.
Yeah.
Okay?
Napansin ko kasi yun, Orion, nung in-explain kasi nila, they were doing the math, no? To reach kasi, to win, you have to reach 270 electoral votes. And yung the road to 270, mas madali na kay Biden kasi yung niya kung advantage siya in terms of the states that he won. And if they consider down, you say Wisconsin or Nebraska?
Maine and Nebraska.
So Nebraska, I think na-mention nila, kahit na one vote lang daw makukuha ni Biden doon, ang total niya aabot ng 270. Si Trump parang kailangan niya panalunin yung buong tinatawag nilang East Coast na parang belt na that it's composed of Pennsylvania, North Carolina. So medyo longer mas mahirap yung kailangang i-accomplish ni Trump to get 270. So napag-usapan yun. And ngayon, I think the current situation is si Joe Biden at the moment has 264. Si Trump 214. Ngayon, alam ko, Orion, itong ating mga viewers, karamihan dito mga supporter ni Presidente ng ating administration. Baka gusto mong i-explain sa kanila na hindi dapat sila mag-worry masyado. Kasi ayaw nila manalo si Biden kasi syempre tropa ni
Pakilamero eh. Pakilamero yung Democrat Party.
Diba? Gusto natin si Trump yata kasi karamihan ng mga supporters ni Presidente gusto manalo si Trump. Kahit na syempre meron siya mga very controversial things na ginagawa lately, yung
actually ang dami kong kaibigan na mga galing Muslim countries. Sabi nila they prefer si Trump na lang. Sabi nila gumagano pa yung isa kong kaibigan na taga Pakistan siya, yung friend ko na Pakistani. He's one of the main organizers of stand-up comedy dito sa Singapore. So, kasi kasama ko siya sa stand-up comedy. So, yung kanya mga post actually may pagka-pro-Trump. Kasi sinasabi niya, kung manalo ngayon si Biden, nako mangingialam na naman sila dun sa mga bansa namin, mga ganun. Which is, diba? At least kay Trump, parang halos wala siyang parang, okay, marami siya sinasabi sa loob ng US. Pero hindi siya nangikialam. Diba? But anyway,
tama Ryan,
Anyway, for us in the Philippines, right. I'd say nothing so much to worry about kasi ang mangyayari, patapos na rin naman ang term ni Tatay Digong. Kasi it's like, 2022 matatapos ang term niya. It's 2020 now. So, wala na rin sila masyadong magagawa. Hindi na nila magugulo. Now, we can this is why I'm saying na dapat talaga tutukan natin yung constitutional reform. And now we can tell them, look, wag na kayo manggulo. In fact, we can prove to them, look, tapos na ang lahat, and right now the reforms that we are setting up, if we do this is even more democratic than what we currently have. Because if we become parliamentary, we become federal, and then we open up to more foreign investors, it becomes more democratized na ngayon yung economic system kasi dadami ang trabaho para sa ordinaryong tao. Tapos yung parliamentary system, it's closer to the people, yung interaction of the people with government is closer, no? And then pag federal, ayun na nga, all the more closer because it's now region based rather than people trying to hit the national level, which is too far away. You can do it from within the regions na. So actually we can really make it very clear kung wag nyo na kaming guluhin kasi ginagawa na nga namin ng mga reforma para maging mas democratic kami. Tas anong gusto nyo eh? Gusto nyo i-stop? Ano yan? So actually mapapahayari naman sila eh. So, and I think they shouldn't really worry so much. No difference really kung Trump or Biden. We just continue doing what we're supposed to do. I think that's the main thing.
I think the concern lang naman talaga is yung possibility of American interference sa ating political affairs. It's being kumbaga you can probably worry about it if you're a supporter of the president. The reason why we worry about it is because of the fact that president yung kanyang policy talaga is to become more independent. 'Di ba? Meron siyang independent policy na gusto niyang i-push since 2016. Kaya nga, 'di ba, meron siyang mga rhetoric na paminsan pabalang na pabanat kay Obama nung si Obama pa yung presidente para lang to establish na hindi kami magpapaano sa Amerika, 'di ba? We are going to be independent, we'll be friends to everyone. We will befriend Russia, we will befriend China, and that's the kumbaga gusto ng ni presidente na maging tayo parang Switzerland ng ASEAN na wala tayong diba, affiliation to anybody.
We'll be friends with all.
So, ang problema dyan, ang Amerikano, alam mo naman ang Amerikano, masyadong kilamero, diba? They go out of their way to do regime changes in South America, and even in our in our situation through the years, diba, in our history, marami na rin silang ginawang mga backdoor na situation marami na silang ginawa to make sure that we are still under American control, even if it's not explicit it's not being explicitly done. So ngayon, ang concern dyan, syempre, kasi si Trump naman medyo kagaya ng sabi ng isa sa ating mga viewers, sabi niya dito yung sabi mo nga Orion, yung kaibigan mo na taga Singapore na Middle Eastern, happy siya kay Trump.
Pakistani siya.
Pakistani kasi si Trump yung kanyang approach sa reconciliation, he wants to get people together, he wants to kumbaga of all the presidents so far without any agenda, gusto talaga niyang to, 'di ba, nakipagkamay pa siya kay North Korea, Kim Jong-un. What's his name? Kim Jong-un ng North Korea. So he has done things that no other presidents have done. Kumbaga, if he domestically hindi siya masyado appealing to the Americans, but for the rest of the world, he seems like a guy na who is thinking about real peace. Hindi lang because they're pushing an agenda. Kaya Amerikano paminsan na agenda eh. Kung makipag-deal sila with the Middle East or Israel, they're thinking in terms of how much oil can we get from this region, di ba? Ingana ba?
Kaya nga.
Or kiraho nato ni kay natay interest diri, di ba? That's the way they do it. And the sad thing is, yung mga Democrats, because they are so ang kanilang preoccupation really is about freedom. They espouse freedom. They don't like dictators. They don't like They want to free the rest of the world. They feel that it's incumbent upon the democratic kumbaga yung principles ng mga liberals na human rights. So chances of them interfering with other countries they feel that go against their principles, malaki masyado yung chance. Unlike sa time ni Trump na do your thing, wag ko pakialam diya. I mean, diba? I have my own thing going.
One thing people need to remember, by the way, is that the Democratic Party was the party of slavery, when the Republican
Yes.
Party was actually the party of abolition. That's what many people forget. That's what many people forget. Abe Lincoln was a Republican, and the South, the slave-owning South was full of Democrats. It was the Democratic, it was really Democratic Party. Mga Ku Klux Klan dati, mga 1920s, Democrat yan lahat. Democrat yan lahat.
Sila
Ku Klux Klan?
Sordid history, no?
That's the history of Actually, things changed starting nagkaroon ng parang change of the guard, parang nagkabaliktad na when many people are saying, some friends of mine some analyst friends were saying, a lot of it seemed to do with when Kennedy, the first Roman Catholic president, was a Democrat. So the thing is, the Democratic Party, they had two main strands, two main wings. One is the urban wing and the rural wing. The rural wing today are now actually Republicans. Today. The rural wing. The provinciano ones. Those groups that are today very, very Republican and kind of a little on the racist side, okay? They were originally Democrat long ago. Okay? Long ago.
Okay,
and now the thing is, the Democratic Party had two groups, and one group was the what do you call this? The one that was in the cities, no? And this group, it appealed to a lot of immigrants because they had some of the things that they were saying were pro-immigration. I mean, pro. So that's why a Catholic immigrant, sila Kennedy, mga Catholic sila from sa Boston. He got in there, and then it kind of pissed off the diehard original, slave Confederate South Republican, not Republicans, Democrats. Okay, these were what they called the Dixiecrats. Dixiecrat. So Democrats from the South, and when you say South, you say Dixie. The term Dixie refers to the South, right? They have that song that parang unofficial Southern national anthem, which is Dixie. Yeah. So they call them the Southern Dixiecrats. So they're Democrats. They left because of parang they didn't like the fact that what's this papist doing in our party? This papist. So this Roman Catholic, what's he doing in our party? So some people were saying that that's the reason why they left, and then eventually they became.
Ryan, what itong transformation of the Democratic Party, when did this happen?
Well, it's around the time. You think of when was Kennedy there?
60s.
So when was Kennedy there? Yeah,
early 60s.
Yeah, and also the other one is the part of the transformation also started, I think, with Roosevelt, because also Roosevelt again was, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a Democrat, but from the urban wing, so the city-based wing, right?
Kabalo ko isang katawanan. Ikaw, you're not really interested in American politics, pero dagan kang you know a lot of things about American politics.
It's not that I'm not interested. I mean, I know about the history, but I'm indifferent to it. I don't really care. I'm an objective observer. I don't really care. So, pare-pareho lang sila. But anyway, I was gonna say the Democratic Party, the lineage of the Democratic Party was from slave-holding racists.
Grabe. Oh, grabe.
Slave-holding racists.
That's an interesting thing, a tidbit that people don't know. Lalo na
And the
siguro yung
Republican Party,
sa Pilipinas.
the
That's something
Republican Party was set up by abolitionists.
abolitionist. Okay. See, Alaric Kahukom says that's what Democrats fail to remember. See, Gian Santos, Trump is isolationist leader. So if they pull out their military base here and other countries, we could easily settle the dispute in WPS. Si Lorimer Redaha, tama Kuya Ron, friends to all and respect our sovereignty as a country and don't dictate to us with economic sanctions. Okay. Si Jose Santiago, Sir Ryan, what is your opinion about the recent post of Sir Franco Mabanta, the new American state?
I haven't read through it yet. I just kind of saw it, but I haven't read it yet though. So that's the thing. Unfortunately, I won't be able to comment on what I haven't read yet. So
but, it's kind of volatile right now in America. The chance of it escalating into something violent is very possible because of what the thing is. I don't know. I feel that Trump is too impulsive and he is his own PR. That's the thing about about Trump. He doesn't listen to anybody but himself. So when he said things like, I think last night, American time, sabi niya, or it was like early in the morning at 2 in the morning, he did a press conference. Sabi niya, na we already won.
Yeah.
If we count the legal votes daw. Sabi niya, unsa man si Trump. And then he said that, kumbaga, he's blatantly accusing the other side of cheating. And then he's saying that, and then his sons, I heard his sons come out also. One of his sons saying that, we will fight for this, even if to the death. What's mga pronouncement ba?
Sounds like Gaddafi. Because that's what they were saying. Sounds like Gaddafi.
I mean, oh my gosh.
That's like Gaddafi and his sons.
Si Cliff, one of our futboleros, was on last Wednesday. We're talking about the U.S. elections as well. He came on. He showed videos while he was in L.A. Kasi sa LA siya, he was doing it live. So he was talking to us while in Los Angeles. And then she was showing, they were boarding up all the establishments in downtown LA. And the same thing is happening in New York. So they're expecting that things might really escalate for the worse.
Well, so this is the thing, no? I can't really comment so much about what's going on in the States in the sense that I don't live there. I don't know much about it. But this is the one thing I just wanted to say. So Americans right now are saying they hate the system. They want to change it. They don't want. They hate the Electoral College. A lot of them are saying now, even people who used to say that they like the Electoral College are now angry. And they're saying this is ridiculous the way it works. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're saying they don't like the Electoral College, and they're saying get rid of the Electoral College. Well, what I'm going to say is this: the Electoral College is the one thing that made the USA not become a shithole country like all other
presidential,
all other presidential countries that use direct voting of the president.
Right.
So what will happen to the US if they get rid of the Electoral College is they will end up becoming like the Philippines, and they will end up becoming like Mexico, like all these other countries in Latin America that are all shitholish. They're all, all the countries, also the ones in Africa, all the countries that are using presidential systems that do not use an electoral college are problematic.
Right.
In the case of the USA, like it or not, the electoral college forced them to have some form of stability. Instead of having 10 candidates running at the same time, 10 candidates for president, they only end up having 2 main candidates.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
see the point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the barriers for entry for newbies or new sons candidates is so high.
Right.
It's so high because of the fact that before you can even run, before your name can appear on the ballot, they call this ballot access.
Mm-hmm.
Before your name can appear on the ballot in a state, you need to you need to prove that you have X number of people from your party who will act as electors.
Mm. Okay, so what about Kanye West?
So yeah, Kanye West was able to actually join in some of these states, right? But
Yeah.
not all. So
Not
he was
all.
able so he was not able to get into the ballot in all states, only in a few states.
He ran as vice president for whom? One of the
For his own party. No.
own
He
party,
had
but
his own group. He basically set up his own thing. He was funded, I mean, like helped out by Elon Musk, and then there's another
oh,
one, the Libertarian Party as well. There's another one. But the
the
point
Green
is,
Party also, the Green Party.
last
Nap-
time they had the Green Party, the Ralph
They
Nader.
still have, they still
Long
have the
ago,
Green Party now. It's in the ballot.
yeah,
Kasama sila.
it's on the ballot. But
Mm.
but were they able to have a strong presence as
Wala.
a machinery? They don't, right? So the thing about the system in the US is it penalizes third parties, right? It
Mm.
makes it hard for a third party to join in. So you need to be a very, very strong party. So the last time you had a strong third party presence, the only time that they really had a strong third party presence was when Ross Perot came in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
Ross
was
Perot
mentioned that. Yeah.
and Ross Perot, the reason why he had a strong presence was because he's a rich guy. So he
Mm.
had money to spend on his campaign. He had money to fund people to be his electors in all these states, etc. You know, he was. But even with all that money, he was a poor third, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So the thing is in the US, because the system is such that if you are a if you are a third party and you don't do very well, it's it's very, how do you say this, discouraging to uh your
Mm.
own members. So many of your members will end up abandoning or
Yeah.
losing hope.
And
So
is it part of their system, Ryan, also to have primaries for the two major parties? Because here in the Philippines, we don't have primaries, obviously.
yeah,
But
so the primaries are something that they do for the major parties. The third parties, they don't have primaries. They don't,
yeah, yeah,
right? They
and
don't
that's
need
what I think.
primaries.
That's the closest thing to the effectivity of a parliament, right? Because, like you said, in a parliamentary system, uh, the cream rises to the top. I mean, the best candidate usually wins.
Well,
So
okay.
yeah.
I was gonna say though that the primaries, some major studies come out. There's one by this professor or late professor Fred Riggs
Mm.
that the primary, although it appears very democratic, it's also one of those things that has degenerated the ability of the parties to get the most um, competent people
Oh, okay. Yeah.
on
Mm.
top.
Yeah.
Because in the primaries, who rises to the top? It's not who's the best, it's who's the most winnable.
Yeah, most winnable or
Most winnable.
the one who has the most funding.
The most funding. Well, winnability is partly also because of the funding. So
Mm.
it's really all about winnability. And I mean, partly Trump had that because he was a reality show star. I mean, he was pretty much a celebrity tycoon per se, tycoon, right? A celebrity guy. So he had all these endorsements. These, long ago, he was already a name because he was basically,
Uh,
how do you say this, marketing himself as a celebrity. So
he,
that's
he
really
was
what
he was a brand. Uh, uh, he was already a brand before
he was a
he
brand already. Yeah. So
before he
that's
entered
how.
politics.
So when he went into politics, and he was originally a Democrat too.
Oh, I
He was
didn't know that.
originally a Democrat. You didn't know that? He actually funded the Clintons. He actually funded one of Bill Clinton's campaign. He was one of the
Oh yeah.
endorsers of Bill Clinton. Yeah, he was a Democrat before. He was a Democrat, and this system in the U.S. is just how effed up they are, because so someone who was really relatively a newbie Republican suddenly became its front runner, right?
Eh,
Because of his what you would call celebrity star personality persona, his media celebrity persona. That's how Trump got there, not necessarily because he's really the best. No, it's just a side note na lang sa atin. It's just an advantage on our part that he also just didn't happen to be very interventionist. I mean, that's
mm,
good for us, diba? But
yeah, that's
my
the
point is,
basic. Yeah, that's like one of the big pluses for
yeah,
for having him as the American president. That interference that we usually get from someone who is not Trump, that is already a given that they will interfere with our affairs here in the Philippines, which is really annoying to say the
yes,
least. Diba?
yes, really annoying. So I think that's the main thing. No? The system in the states, a lot of people are angry, but they just don't know what to be angry about. And many
Yeah.
people are saying, "Oh, it's the electoral college. Just get rid of it." But no, and please, viewers, tell your friends from the U.S. don't get rid of the electoral college. Instead, go with a parliamentary system. That's the only way to go. In fact, other people have already talked a lot about it. A lot of people. There was Francis Fukuyama talks a lot about it, that the U.S.
Yeah,
should
yeah.
have just gone with the
But
parliamentary system. And there's
that
another one. There's another one. Let me finish here. There's another
yeah.
guy, Woodrow Wilson, an ex-president. He was before he became a president of the U.S.
Was he a
Woodrow
proponent?
Wilson.
Oh, okay.
He was Woodrow Wilson. Okay, he was a president. Uh, Before he became president, he was also a professor at a PhD of political science. And one of the things he was proposing, was the USA should become parliamentary. And his approach was, let's come up with congressional government. So it's parliamentary government using American style terminology. So instead of calling it parliamentary government,
Mm,
congressional government. So the
okay.
Congress will choose who is the president. So that's what he was saying, that Congress will have a prime minister, but they call him president, and it should be done the same way that the UK does it. And honestly,
Mm,
that's what they should have done. That's what they should have done long ago. No, and there are so many others who said that. There's also there's this guy named what's his name? Damn it, I forgot his name. He's a free market capitalist guy. Jeez, I forgot his name.
Adams.
No, 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 no. Why did I forget who this guy is? Henry Hazlitt.
Okay.
Henry Hazlitt. So he was always talking about free markets. He was always talking about lower taxes and all that stuff. But at the same time, he was talking about the U.S. needs to go to a parliamentary system. And
Mm,
honestly, I mean, there's been a lot of people who say that we have to become a parliamentary system. The problem is, many ordinary Americans are too enamored by their own system, by the myth of the infallibility of the founding fathers, okay, that they forget that actually they were just lucky in the US that their system back then was relatively okay, because they did not yet have mass media long ago. Long ago, long ago, when they had their presidential system, most of what they had was from newspapers. When you get your news from newspapers, you can tend to be a bit more logical or rational. There's less of the sensationalism, right? But today there's too much sensationalism.
alam
Everything
mo,
is
Ryan,
sensationalist. So what happens because of sensationalism? Everything is all emotionally driven. And
yeah,
that's why you have
you
the kind of candidates that you have.
Based on the way you've described the situation in America and all the ideas that came about because of the inherent problems of their current presidential system, it reminds me of our current situation at the moment. Because, well, first of all, we're as derogatory as it sounds, we are indeed the little brown brothers of the Americans. We are so
Yes.
masyado tayong bilib sa Amerikano ba? Even the system of government that we have adopted are based on the American system. And now, whatever problems that they have with that system, we actually share at the same time.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I have some observations, Orion, about the current situation that they have over in America. But before we get into that, Orion, let me just read some of the messages here coming from
Okay.
our viewers. Sabi ni Dominic Solpico, hindi si Buckley, William yata, or Franklin, George Mason? You? Si Paul.
Okay. So William Buckley. William Buckley is also one of the other guys who says, "Let's change to, let's." Oh no. So Frank. No. So sorry. Frank Buckley
Ah,
is one of the guys who talks a lot about changing to the to the parliamentary system. Not so much William F. Buckley, but it was Frank Buckley who Frank Buckley is from George Mason University. So, but
okay,
there was
cool.
another guy, the other guy, the one I was talking about, who's free market talaga. That was Henry Hazlitt.
Okay, I'm
Henry
gonna
Hazlitt.
keep that in mind. Henry Hazlitt. You should research on that as well. Katong mga nagatanaw ron ba, the viewers. Paul Lintag says, Colorado citizens voted yes for their state to join National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, wherein they will allocate their state's electoral votes to whoever wins the popular vote. Okay. Did you know this, Orion?
Yeah, there
Uh,
are some states where there is this movement in the U.S. to redefine the way their electoral college works. So instead of getting rid of the electoral college, what they're trying to do is, okay, we'll circumvent it by redefining how the electoral votes will be allocated. So right now, almost all states except Nebraska and Maine, they
mm,
award all their votes to the state winner, right?
yes. Uh,
Except for Nebraska and Maine, who
mm,
only give their state votes to two electoral positions. The rest are congressional district based. So district based yung voting ng other electors, except for those two ones which are awarded based on the statewide vote. Now in the
good.
others,
Mm,
it's the statewide vote that determines of their
right.
all of their electoral votes. Now, this new proposal is in order to so-called get rid of the electoral college issue and
Mm,
make everything turn into a popular vote. They're saying then every state should decide to award their electoral votes to the winner of the nationwide popular
ah.
vote. The
Yeah,
nationwide popular vote. That's what they're trying to
actually,
say.
actually, right. I also have a question about that, though. One very peculiar thing about the U.S. Electoral system, uh, one of their rules that I find very amusing, is that the party that is, kumbaga, the winning party for a particular state, the one that's governing, they have the prerogative to actually do gerrymandering, which is a very I don't know what benefit that has for the actual electorate, though. I mean, for the governing party, they're the ones can choose who can redistrict, kumbaga, the
Yeah,
area
yeah, yeah.
according to their
But
advantage.
actually,
Based on
that's kind of common in most countries. that the
is it
that the
common?
ability, yeah, it's common in most countries that they have the ability to redistrict based on, okay, they have to redistrict usually every 10 years because they need
Hmm.
to have a census. They do a census all the time to see
Meron sa
what's the
Pilipinas na pala yan,
population.
di ba?
Yeah,
Pilipinas
we
na.
do that all the time also. That's why
Mm.
we also end up having new bago nga district diri kay nidaghan di ang tao, you know. So we regularly need to redistrict every 10 years because populations change. There are some places,
Mm.
for example, if there is an area that currently has a large number of people, and then they even have more people migrate to that place. After 10 years, it becomes double the size. They now
Oh.
need to have a new district. If they have one congressman there, if they have if they become double the size of that district, they need to
Mm.
have now two people. So that district will be split into two, and
Oh.
there's a new slot that opens up.
This is not ano pala,
See?
this is not something they use tactically. Uh,
But they use it. Okay, so they need to do redistricting because of that, because of the changes in demographics. But at the same time, they do it also tactically so that they can have the most number of wins within the state.
right.
So kasi if instead of like ang gagawin mo, instead of you can draw the district so that you have just enough winners. Let's say you're a Republican and you want the Republican Party to have more Republican representatives. No? So what
Mm.
you're going to do is you can redistrict the area so that you don't have areas na ito 100% Republican lahat yan. What you're going to do is you're going to cut that district into join it with some areas that have Democrats so that the Democrats there they lose, but instead of having one area na puro Republican lang,
Mm.
'di ba? Na landslide 100% lahat sila Republican.
Mm. Mm.
You join that area with an area that has para maging ano sila siguro 60% of the new area will be 60% Republicans, and then the rest 40% are
Mm.
Democrats.
Right.
Then you do the same thing, 60% Republicans dito tapos isa Democrats ganyan. And then you do it such that pag election time, instead of having one area na puro Republican and then all the rest are Democrats, you're going to have an area na you're going to have three Republican winners and then hardly anyone from the Democratic Party. So parang you're going to redistribute the population. I mean, you're going to redraw the electoral districts so that you can, how do you say this? You can maximize the winnability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diba? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's gerrymandering.
Si Paul Lintag here medyo may update na sa results sa elections America. Sabi niya Biden now leads in Pennsylvania. It's over for Trump. Kasi just so people would know, no, nasa 250 plus na si Biden. So he needs less than, I think 253, he needs less than less than 20 to reach 270. So kaso ang Pennsylvania has 20 electoral votes. So if he wins Pennsylvania, wala na, game over na talaga. Muti na academic yung kumbaga yung math for Trump to reach 270, because if he loses Pennsylvania, it's over. Now
Yeah.
Tama ba, Ryan?
Yes.
So the question
yung Georgia nga ano nga rin na yung Georgia originally kay kay Trump Das leading ngayon si Biden.
Leading na rin si Biden, patay.
Leading din si Biden sa Georgia, 16 yon. 16 electoral votes yon. So anyway, my point is I was going to say look, for Americans who don't like the results or who are troubled by the way the system works, well, don't think of getting rid of the electoral college. Instead, go with the parliamentary system. And I'm going to give an example from the IT perspective of system change that was done. No, so I'll give you an example. Um, so you have all these computers, like you have the IBM PC based computers, and then the Apple Macintosh type computers, right? So from the IBM PC, the ones that we're using, the PCs right now, for a long time they were running on DOS, right? Microsoft basically is the one who created DOS, and DOS, it worked okay for a time, and then after that, people wanted to have graphical user interface, so Microsoft set up Windows. It put Windows on top of DOS, but it still had a lot of limitations. Okay, and on the other hand, you had the Macintosh. They also created a system for the PC, for the Macintosh, which is also a PC, or which is also a personal computer rather. That yeah, basically single user type, single use, single computing paradigm. Uh, and then later on, computers the components of computers started to become cheaper and cheaper.
Mm.
Memory started to become cheaper, hard disk space became cheaper, processing speed became faster, etc., etc. And so it became possible to do a lot more number crunching in less time, at less cost, etc. So computers could start to become more powerful and more powerful. And these operating systems, MS DOS running with Windows, and the other one, the original classic Mac OS, they were found to be inadequate to be able to do the complex, hardcore, heavy duty computing that was now becoming possible with all of the new advances in technology. Now that you have faster processors, more storage, more memory, parang they were feeling that ay hindi na kaya. So if you recall before, there was a time when you would you would not be able to make use of a huge amount of memory by just using MS DOS, and you need
Mm.
to use these memory management software to expand it. Parang by default hindi kaya. So Microsoft decided we will now shift away from we unti-unti we will get rid of the DOS system. So they created a second line called NT, Windows NT,
Mm.
new technology. So
Mm.
Windows NT was no longer based on a minimalist, kasi the PC, the MS DOS paradigm was very minimalist. It was meant to run on limited hardware, limited
The
memory, you know. So
This is ano,
based
diba, they run on assembly language kumbaga. When you use MS-DOS, hindi pa
yeah.
siya like, 'di ba? I mean, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, I was going to say that there were basically technical limitations in terms of the architecture of
Right.
MS-DOS, right? And MS-DOS, and even the Windows that was running on top of MS-DOS. And so they decided we need to come up with a new system that would be more powerful and be able to take advantage of the faster computing speed and the greater memory, ability, etc., and allow for greater security, allow for multitasking, allow for multi users, multiple users using the same system. So um, they came up with NT, Microsoft Windows NT, and NT was actually based on the architecture of, I wouldn't call it a mainframe. It was based on a huge computer that was uh, made by Digital Equipment Corporation. So there's this big computer, the VAX mini computer, or
Mm.
the VAX mid-range computer, very very powerful. And Microsoft basically they pirated this guy and his team from Digital Equipment Corporation. They brought him in, and he developed Microsoft Windows NT
Mm. Mm.
using the architecture used for these very powerful systems
Mm.
in VMS. No? So it was much more technically advanced, much more complicated, but it was now fitting towards the new paradigm of computing, which is a bit more complex na. Greater memory, all this kind of things. So they eventually they decided to cut off the MS DOS and old Windows system when they created Windows XP, because Windows XP is a continuation of Windows NT using a different how do you say this, architecture. Okay, so look and feel niya, it looks like Windows. It looks the same as Windows, but underneath, mas efficient siya, mas ano siya, more, it has this complex algorithm that allows it to do complex things that the old systems could not do.
I
Okay?
get the Ryan, the comparison that
Yeah.
you're making
Now,
right
so
now.
what I'm saying is these companies, so Microsoft, they basically parang sneakily changed the underlying architecture, pero ang interface niya is still the same. The same thing happened with the Macintosh, with Apple. Apple was feeling that their old system was already parang hindi na kaya eh. That's why Apple decided to buy this computer company, this company called Next. That's why in the 90s they bought Next, which was surprise surprise founded by Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs left Apple, diba?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs left Apple, and he started Next. And Next had this system which was based on Unix. Again, Unix is a system that is meant really for big computers, like really complex, heavy duty technical stuff. So Apple decided to pirate back Jobs and bring in this OS that they created to become the underlying architecture for the next generation of Macintosh operating system. That's why they called it Mac OS X, Mac OS 10, kasi they had Mac OS 7, System 7, System 8, System 9. They had Mac OS X. They used X because usually if you have an X in the name, it means Unix. It's a Unix-based system, which is a very powerful system. Similar to VMS also. Very powerful. So
why is this Ryan? Why is this important?
Why is this important? Why is this important? Because these companies were able to decide to change their system. They had a system, an existing product, which was limited. They had an old MS DOS and the old Windows. They were becoming limited by, basically there were technical limitations there that they could not go further. So the hardware was improving and improving, but the OS could not cope with the advances in this technology. So they needed to come up with something better. And they did that. Right? They cut away from the old system and they replaced it with a newer one. Same thing that Apple did. My point is that the US needs to do the same. The USA needs to do what these IT companies were able to do, what these computer companies were able to do. They revamped their operating systems. Instead of old MS-DOS, which was MS-DOS worked for small computers na 640 KB, yung mga ganun lang, 'di ba? Konti lang yung yung 512 KB or 256 KB yung memory mo, RAM memory mo. But now that you're talking about 32 gigs of RAM, you need something more powerful to access that all that memory. So that's why they stopped using the old and they came up with something new. Apple did the same. And the US needs to do the same too. Their old system, their presidential system probably worked somewhat before, but now it's proving to be cumbersome. It's always crashing. What happens when you had these shutdowns, diba? How many shutdowns have they had? They've had more than 10 over the past 40 years already. They get shutdowns every time the White House does not agree with either the House or the Senate.
Usually, it's about the
Diba?
budget,
There's
and
a budget thing, and then they have a
they,
shutdown, diba?
they reach an impasse, and then when
Yeah,
it reaches that point, then it shuts down. The government shuts
shuts
down.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this never happens in a parliamentary system. Shutdowns
Mm,
never happen in a parliamentary system. In the US, they end up having shutdowns so often. In the
but
past
but
30
all right,
years,
yeah,
40 years,
actually,
they've had so many.
as someone who is who belongs to an industry like the infotech industry, you've been doing this for quite some time now, since
Yeah.
you started working in Singapore. This has been your expertise, to be part of the um,
Basically in IT.
in IT, to be part of IT. But
Yeah.
there's such a thing as some migration. I mean, it's probably easier for the IT sector to do upgrades compared to a political system which is very dependent on um, not necessarily
But it is
technology, but
possible. But it is possible. It is possible. I mean,
kasi ano it's
people migrate all the time.
paradigm shift. A paradigm
Yeah.
shift requires cooperation.
It's true. It's true.
Diba?
But people migrate systems all the time, and the USA has been proven to have already essentially migrated to a quasi parliamentary system at many of their lowest levels of government.
Mm,
In
yeah.
many, more than 50% of cities and towns in the USA are now using a council manager form of government, which is actually um, uh, a minimized form of the parliamentary system. Okay,
Mhm.
whereas unlike in the Philippines, where we're still stuck with the traditional strong mayor and weak council system, which is a derivative of the presidential system. So you have a strong mayor, right? A strong mayor, and then you have the councilors, right, who do all the legislation, but all the ordinances, right, is done by the councilors, and the mayor takes care of all the executive stuff. And they're separate. They're basically separate. It's very similar to the president, and then you have the Congress and Senate. They're purely legislation, and then this one is purely executive. Whereas in the council manager system is all of the whole council meets as one. There is no they all they all together hire a professional manager, right? And this manager is the one who handles the day to day stuff of in the community. Okay, and they all have a say in the management. So it's a very parliamentary style of doing things, and it works better in the US. They've been able to prove that these places that shifted away from the original traditional mayor system to a council manager system, which is very much like a parliamentary system, they've become zero corruption. And then not only in terms of low corruption, they've also managed to be how do you say this, yung parang not insolvent. They're usually not having budget deficits, so they're very parang better managed because there are more eyes watching over things.
Well, let me
Because
ask you a question, Ryan.
yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Ryan. Like, how many countries have transitioned from a presidential system to a parliamentary that you know of?
So there are now several in the former Soviet Union, the orbit of the former Soviet Union. So you have all these countries like Georgia, Armenia, um, there's Kyrgyzstan, there's all
Mm.
these other countries that basically they were originally using a presidential based system, and they've decided, okay, you know what, let's go. Even Moldova, by the way, Moldova as well. So
Okay.
there are a lot of countries that were actually more presidential, and then they decided, you know what, this is not working very well. Let's shift. Let's go parliamentary. And right now there are a lot of other countries that are thinking about the shift. In Africa, they're thinking of doing the shift. It's actually totally possible. People just have to know that it's possible. The biggest enemy of the population is their pessimism and their inability to see that change is possible. That's really what it is. In the case of, of a country like the US, they just have to they have to become angry enough of the lousiness of their system to be able to realize they have to change it. And when they all agree that they need to change it, they will make it happen. So they just have to free themselves of the mythology that this system created by the founding fathers is the best system in the world. They have to get rid of that, because they have to admit to themselves that, look, what's happening right now, this lousy system that caused them to have this, that caused them to even hate on the electoral college that they have. This has to change, and it's possible to do it. It's possible to do it.
I don't mean to echo what you just said, Ryan, but I can't help but think about the sentimentality involved in the framers' reluctance. If not reluctance, they're talagang yung kontra to change the 1987 Constitution has nothing to do with the merits of why we need to do it, but it's more about, because we made it, we did it, it's a perfect constitution.
Emotion na lang talaga. Diba? Emotion na lang talaga nila yan. Yan sina Monsod. I believe Monsod now realizes na mali yata siya. But I think he's just parang, nahihiya siyang umamin. But I think he knows that he was wrong. I think he knows he was wrong.
Because the people who are watching right now, you might be wondering, because Orion has a way of explaining things through the IT eyes. Somebody who is familiar with systems and how to upgrade systems and the need to upgrade systems because we're constantly evolving. That he wants to apply his knowledge to the political side aspect of the our country's growth or progress, because we're stuck at the moment. We're getting by with good leadership because we elected a good president. That's why in the last 4 years things are happening. But what happens once Digong leaves for office in 2022? Are we going back? Are we going to revert
the problem, right?
The old system where
that's the problem,
where a bad leader will ultimately result to us going back to basic again.
He might even cancel the good things that were done in this current current administration. So because we don't know who's going to win. First of all, we don't know who's running.
Yeah.
And the last thing we want is all the guys that we who are on our side are running against each other, and then yung kalaban isa lang siya.
Yeah, it might cancel out
out lahat yung mga magagaling, di ba?
Tama.
Diba?
So problema yan.
Lahat ng mga DDS, lahat ng mga alam nating DDS ngayon, magkabaglaban-laban sila. Tapos yung isang dilaw, mag-run siya lang ang dilaw. Di lahat ng dilaw united. Ano mangyayari? Talo.
Kasi feeling ko kasi, Orion, medyo short-sighted ang Pinoy . Kasi mahirap. Unang-una, pansinin mo yung ugali. Pag-uugali ng ibang Pinoy na, I think it's become prevalent. It's sad to say. But once something becomes difficult or something that's hard to understand, saan ba nanggaling yung kasabihan na, uy, tama na yung English, nosebleed. Parang it's already
Kalokohan yan
program.
I hate that.
Diba? It's annoying, diba? To hear people say that na nosebleed na English, Tagalog naman, ganyan. Tapos when you explain things na medyo complex, tune out ka agad.
Hindi naman nila kaya. Diba?
Diba?
So actually ito yung nangyari. Ako ay sa correct na na page. May mga Tagalog yun naman. Sabi ko, sorry kung kaya nga namin ini-English yung iba dito. Sobrang technical. At dahil sa pagiging technical niya, yung audience na gusto naming maabutan ay yung mga taong technical na ang preferred language nila ay English.
Mhm.
Ngayon, sabi ko, paminsan, na-try namin, sinubukan namin na itagalog yung isang napaka-technical. Ang nangyari, walang nagbasa. Kayo, na gusto nyo ng Tagalog, nung nabasa nyo na sobrang technical, di naman nyo binasa. Yung mga technically inclined naman, nakita nilang Tagalog, nahirapan sila, ayaw nilang basahin. So walang nagbasa. Kaya nga namin ini-English kasi at least yung pag-English siya, yung mga technical na gustong mag-aral tungkol sa isang technical na topic like the parliamentary system or the electoral college differences, blah blah blah. Yung mga interesado diyan, gusto nila in English nilang basahin. So,
Kaya,
diba?
alam mo, ang pwede
Yun
kong
yung nangyari.
comparison ko yan, Orion, no? Masyado tayong sanay na sumakay sa kariton. Sanay tayo sa kariton dahil napakasimpleng i-operate eh. Kailan lang itulak, tapos lahat tayo, patong-patong tayo doon sa kariton, tutulak kahit na hirap na tayo. Ngayon, meron nagpo-propose, meron akong blueprint or diagram ng paano gumawa ng sasakyan. Kailangan nating magbumuo ng makina, tapos kailangan nating kabitan ng tambutso, merong tinatawag na exhaust system, tapos may tinatawag na... Tapos pag in-explain mo na dun sa mga kasamahan mo na sanay sa kariton, sa kanila parang, ang hirap naman intindihin yung sinasabi mo.
Sa kariton na lang tayo.
Sa kariton na lang tayo sumakay.
Walang nangyayari, di ba?
Kaya hindi tayo umuunlad. Ngayon, hindi na naiintindihan ng paminsan ng karamihan nating mga kababayan. Hindi rin nila kasalanan, no? Kasi hindi naman din sila marami sa ating mga kababayan na hindi rin nagtapos. Marami sa ating mga kababayan na kulang rin yung kaalaman sa mga bagay-bagay. Pag in-explain mo sa kanila yung importansya ng pagbabago ng konstitusyon o ang konstitusyon mismo, pag in-explain mo ang konstitusyon, hindi nila naiintindihan dahil medyo complex yung mga concepts behind it. So paano mo sila i-convince na kailangan natin yung suporta mo na baguhin yung sistema na hindi naman nila naiintindihan yung sistema? Yun ang ating challenge parati, Orion, na napapag-usapan natin parati sa ating programa. Na itong ating mga nanonood, itong mga ibang nagtiyaga na makinig sa atin ng 1 oras at kalahati, sila, nagigets nila eh. Medyo hindi na sila na parang, alam mo, kaya kami sumusuporta sa correct movement kasi alam namin, we can relate to what Orion is saying. Kaso hanggang doon lang tayo. Hindi natin napapadami yung ating mga ating advocates, mga champions for constitutional reform.
Nakikita ko, the key to it really is multiple channels talaga. So multi-level channels kasi iba-iba yung level ng mga tao, may iba diyan sobrang technical. So yung mga taong galing sa mga technical na background na kunyari engineering, IT, ganyan, medicine, yung mga ganong tipo, yun, sanay akong mag-explain ng ganyan sa kanila. Tapos kung yung mga tao naman na ayaw masyado ng mga sobrang technical, di kinakailangan ako, kaya gumagawa rin ako ng mas simpleng bagay. Simpleng explanation, no? Paliwanag na hindi ganong technical. Pero nawawala rin yung tawag nito, yung mga detalye na importante, no? Pero at least
pag binira sila ng kunyari ang kanilang kadebate ay medyo learned, may kaalaman sa topic, tapos bigla babanatan sila. Alam mo ba ibig sabihin ng kunyari, sige nga, define mo ang parliamentary system. Diba?
Kaya ito yung ginawa ko. Nung una kong sinimulan yung correct movement, talagang from the very beginning, hindi muna ako nag-ambisyon na i-convert ang maraming masa. Hindi. Ang una kong tina-target muna ay middle class. Ang una kong tinarget in fact ay middle class na edukado at kung pwede nga Inglesero muna. Inglesero. Kasi ang na-notice ko dati noong 1990s, may dalawang klase ng kampanya. Yung kampanya na isa sobrang technical na ang nagsulat ay mga PhD para sa kapwa PhD lang. Sila lang ang nagkakaintindihan. Tapos meron ding may ibang part ng kampanya sobrang sinisimplify ang isang bagay na nagbuka na siyang hindi na totoo. Parang, kung nagkaroon tayo ng parliamentary system, gaganda ang lahat. Pero hindi na in-explain kung paano nangyayari yan. Kasi, ang target audience ng isa ay sobrang taas, yung mga PhD, sobrang taas yun. Yung isa naman, sobrang masa. Diba? Sobrang masa. So, ginawang sobrang simplified na, basta kung magkaroon ka ng ganyan, gaganda lahat. Pero hindi in-explain paano nangyayari. Ano yung step by step. Wala. So, ako, ang inisip ko, kailangan natin munang magkaroon din ng paraan para yung mga middle class na hindi naman PhD, hindi naman espesyalista sa systems of government, pero may sapat na talino para makaintindi ng mga technical na concept. Ano nila maintindihan ang mga konsepto ng change of system of government, change of economic system sa kahit hindi sila mga PhD ng political science, kahit hindi sila political science graduate, kahit hindi sila economics graduate. Ang inisip ko, paano ko kukumbinsihin ang mga middle class na edukado na may interest sa medyo technical na bagay. So yun yung una kong thrust was sila munang uunahin ko. At least meron akong sector ng population ng Pilipinas na pwedeng ma-convert. So yun yung una kong tinatawag na audience ay yun. So doon ako nakakuha ng mga assistant ko. So yung mga taong yan na na-convert una kong na-convert, mga IT, mga engineer, mga architect, mga ganyang tipong, mga technical na tao, at saka musician na, kasi ang musician usually technical yan eh.
Isip yung mga yan.
Maano sila sa technical eh, yung mga musician, especially pag instrumentalist. So they're usually technical. So they really understood all this stuff, no? Sila ngayon ang tumulong sa akin sa kumbaga imbis na ako lang mag-isa, marami na kami. So ngayon, pagpapasok ako sa isang debate, ang dami ko ng mga alalay. Diba? So yung mga alalay na yun tumutulong sa akin na nakikipag-argue dun sa isang tao na tapos sila rin nagsinispread nila yung word sa mga kapwa rin nilang mga architect, sa kapwa nilang mga engineer, kapwa nilang mga medtech, doktor, ano pa dyan, mga basta galing sa technical din. And then dun siya nagsimula. So unlike yung 1990s na mga movements talking about charter change before, na either sobrang taas or sobrang masa ang dating, normally hindi siya nakakuha ng middle class na base. Ako, ang inisip ko sa correct movement, hanap tayo ng middle class na base. And I think this time, it succeeded kasi ginamit namin internet. Internet, social media, YouTube, mga video. Tapos kahit English, okay lang. So, gumawa ko mostly mga English na articles, kung ano pa dyan, English ang gamit. Tapos, from that group of people na masanay mag-English na may mga nakuha akong tao na para bang yung nabasa nila, nagustuhan nila, uy, Orion, hingi ako ng permission sa'yo. Okay lang ba gagawa ako ng cartoons na Tagalog, tapos yung mga paliwanag mo ang gagamitin ko? Sabi ko, sure, go ahead. So meron isang tao, si Baron Butsukoy, hindi ko alam ano yung tunay niyang pangalan, gumawa ng mga video. At yung mga video na yan, ginawa niya in Tagalog. Ngayon, nakakuha rin siya ng mga OFW. Marami doon sa mga naging mga OFW na hindi ganun ka-Inglesero, pero may exposure na rin sa ibang bansa. So doon nag-add yung base ng mga tao. So that's how Correct was able to come up, parang form a movement using cyberspace, using the internet, using social media. So kahit na English ang gamit, parang si Rizal Kastila ang ginamit niya dahil yun yung salita ng mga edukadong Pilipino nung panahon niya. Pero kumbaga, bakit niya ginamit ang Kastila? Kasi ang layunin ni Rizal ay kumbinsihin muna natin yung mga edukado. Kasi yung mga edukado at middle class at saka upper class, yun yung may kakayahan, yun yung mga may pera para mag-fund ng revolusyon kung magkakaroon man ng revolusyon, or 'di ba? Or sila rin yung mga magiging leaders ng bagong society. Kung lahat ng mga taong kinumbinsi mo yung mga hindi pa nila alam anong gagawin nila, magkakaroon ng gulo. So kinakailangan para kumbaga yung tine-training mo or yung ini-impluwensyahan mo, yung mga officers, hindi yung mga kawal lang na ordinaryo, kundi yung mga officers, 'di ba? So ganun. Tapos yung mga officers, the officers will be the ones to train the men. They will train the men on what they learn.
The model that you have applied or for a correct movement is very interesting, Orion, actually. Actually, sa tagal na active ang correct movement, it only goes to show that like-minded people who joined your movement, talagang they're very interested in their intention to make sure that changes happen. Nakita mo, yung commitment nandun talaga eh. I mean, Orion, I've heard you before complaining. Sometimes you were a bit medyo paminsan nagiging downtrodden ka rin kasi parang ang dami mong ginagawang sakripisyo, yung panahon mo nahati sa trabaho at iyong advokasya, at walang minsan na frustrate ka dahil ang bagal rin ng gobyerno kasi mag-transition or to take on changes or challenges such as this. But I get it. But let me unload a little bit of nugget na I feel na we need to understand also what the problem is and how we can solve it. Kasi ang feeling ko rin, lalong-lalo sa panahon ng social media, kasing dami ang interest ng tao. Kung gaano ka ADHD ng individual who engage in social media, ganun rin kadami yung pwede mong salihang grupo. At ang challenge natin pag pinapag-usapan natin pagbabago ng gobyerno or constitutional reform, and it's as technical as actually listening to somebody talk about engineering or mathematical equations, na paminsan yung audience mo napakaliit rin. Kasi hindi lahat ng tao interesado sa politika eh. Kahit na siguro pag mag-survey tayo, isa-isa yung mga nakikinig ngayon, tanungin mo yung mga kapitbahay mo tsaka yung mga kaibigan mo, pag-usapan mo politika, chances are when you look at the expression in their face, parang tune out kaagad. Diba?
Kaya ang nga natin, ang naisip kong kombinasyon talaga. Ang combination dyan yung mga simpleng parang mga memes, no? Mga memes na gagamit ng Tagalog, that's for the masa. Pero kapag once you start talking about yung mga nitty-gritty intricacies, alam mo talaga na you have to expect that you're going to be hitting a smaller group of people, but at least you have to make sure that you are able to target the right group of people. So people who are interested and people who have the technical or intellectual ability to understand what you're talking about. Kasi sometimes you need quantity, and in other cases you need quality. When it comes to being able to argue with, usually sa mga politiko, no, you need to have people na magaling din na makipag-argue sa mga politiko. You need to have people na magagaling na makipag-argue na hindi lang nila alam yung mga surface information lang, pero alam nila yung nitty-gritty.
Pero Ryan, don't you think it's not so much dumbing it down so that the ordinary person can understand the concepts behind governance and politics? It's really more about making it more interesting enough that they become passionate for it. Kasi imagine somebody talking about let's say talking about Mobile Legends. Pucha, ang daming makikinig sa iyo niyan. Kasi mahilig sila sa Mobile Legends, 'di ba?
So ito yung nagawa nga namin So kaya nga kami sa Correct na nakatrabaho din namin si Mocha. nakatrabaho namin si Banat Bay. So yung mga meron kami mga videos na nagawa na nandun si Mocha, nandun si Banat Bay, nandun din si
Aris.
Drew. Si Aris kasi ang namin ang gumawa ng mga video na 'yon, no? So nagamit namin sila to reach slightly more masa contingent, no? So Tagalog ang gamit, tapos more fun-based yung So meron din kaming maraming nahatak. So yung mga cartoons ni Baron Butchokoy, marami din na mga masa nakuha doon, di ba? So ang importante kasi is, pero alam namin na hindi rin so yung mga nakuha naming medyo masa na gusto ng mga ganun, yun yung mga taong meron din talaga silang kakayahan na maka-appreciate sa mga konsepto na yan. So hindi na lang kami, ang sinasabi ko we should not expect that yung mga taong abalang-abala sa kanilang hanap buhay or yung talagang walang oras para sa mga ganitong klaseng diskurso mapapasok sa ganito. Siguro mabibigyan natin sila ng konting ideya, no? Yung maganda pag ganito, so maganda kapag parliamentary, maganda kapag open sa FDI, maganda pag federalism. Pero hindi na natin mabibigyan sila ng sobrang technical na mga detalyadong eksplanasyon o paliwanag kung paano nangyayari ito. Basta't alam nila na maganda to. Yun siguro yung main point. So, sinasabi ko, 2-track nga talaga. 1 track is to make people understand yung detalye. Tapos yung mga ibang tao na hindi naman talaga sila interesado sa mga detalye, basta gagana ba yan? Oo o hindi. Oo, gagana. Sige, okay na ako dyan. Maging kontento na tayo dyan sa ganyan. So I think 2-track yan, 2-track.
I have this I'm getting this feeling, Orion, na we can help simplify our way of promoting constitutional reform and also the advocacy of correct movement. Kasi una-una meron na tayong captured audience when we talk about the DDS. So yung mga supporters ni Presidente, lahat yan, kahit pag alam nila na in line with what the President wants, makikinig sila. Ngayon ang challenge.
Diba? And I've done that a lot. So kami yun nga yung genesis yun yung pinanggalingan nung Reform Minute. So kaya nga yung Reform Minute namin, nandiyan si Mocha, nandiyan si Banat Bay, kasi kuha nila yun yung may certain demographic na talagang patok sa kanila, 'di ba? Tapos gumagamit ng language. Yun, we used simple language really for that.
Pero may suggestions ako, bro, pag sa yung mga inyong mga iniisip, mga pinaplanong mga videos for correct movement, simulan ninyo sa linya na, alam mo ba bakit gusto ni Presidente magkaroon ng federal parliamentary system? Dapat ganoon. Dapat talagang i-connect mo na kagad kay Presidente.
No, and in fact, that's how I did my videos. Actually, kaya nga ako I went viral before kasi gumawa ako ng mga ganyang video na Cebuano, tapos Tagalog, ganyan. I mean, I don't know if you've seen those videos.
I feel kasi if we appeal to the base of the President, i-diretso na natin. Ito gusto ni Presidente.
Yeah. Diba? But we're already doing that. Essentially we're already doing that. So I don't think that's the problem. I think we're actually already doing that, and kami sa Correct, we've actually been doing that. That's why some people were accusing the Correct movement of being a DDS group, which part of Correct is DDS. I mean, like I am a DDS, or I'm a Duterte supporter. But the movement itself is actually purely focused on constitutional reform. And it just so happens that there are a lot of us, or majority of us, are DDS. That's the point. But there are also people in Correct na matagal nang nasa Correct na hindi naman DDS. May iba nga kami member na anti-Duterte pero pro talaga sila sa mga reforma. Kasi matagal na silang pro sa mga reforma. Yun nga, it's a bit it's hard to understand how it's possible na may mga taong anti, but for me, ay sabi ko sa kanila, look, we're going to do everything we can to get low-hanging fruit. And they agreed with it. Sige, go ahead. So
I want to experiment.
Low-hanging fruit.
I want to experiment sana, Ryan. Kasi, syempre the hardest part about this campaign, we've been doing this for kayo longer, of course, correct movement have been doing this even before President Duterte came to power. But the ones who are part of the campaign, like the ones who are part of the DILG core group, yung constitutional reform campaign, the hardest part is to mobilize people to be more vocal about wanting constitutional reform. The reason why Congress is not acting on it with urgency is because they feel na wala namang tunog eh. Walang nagpe-pressure sa amin, yung mga constituents namin ay tahimik. I think kahit we have to, at least on my end, I have to admit na I haven't convinced as many people to be more vocal about it. Because it's like, I'm into soccer, I'm into football. If I start talking about football with somebody who's interested in basketball or something else, it would be a hard sell, di ba?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
ano yung challenge? So I think that's where the challenge lies, feeling ko, Ryan. Are we capable of convincing somebody who doesn't know anything about constitutional reform na at the very least, they will listen to you for 5 minutes and say, okay rin yan ah. Diba? Kahit ganun lang yung level. Diba? Ay, okay pala yan. Meron palang ganyan. Yun na, I think, diba?
Yun na yung ginawa namin. So you can take pointers from what we did with reform minute. Kung panoorin mo yung mga videos na ginawa ni Aris. Basically, yung mga ginawa ni Aris, lahat yun based sa mga sinulat ko. Mga based sa mga articles ko, sa mga iba kong mga mahahabang post, ganyan, tapos nag-sit down kami kasama ni Aris at saka ni Tara. Gumawa kami ng script na masa friendly, Tagalog, pero based on the same concepts. Tapos i-act out na yun tuloy ni Aris or ni kasama si Mocha at saka si Drew, or so ganun siya. And it would have to hit, para bang ang ano nga namin is yung focus yung kabuhayan, yung tiyan ng tao, yung paano sila makakakain, paano sila makakahanap ng trabaho, yung ganong klaseng how do you say this, ganong klaseng approach. I mean, there's three approaches mind, heart, and stomach. So yung original ko was yung when I was originally talking about reaching out to fellow technical people, I mean I was lucky na naka-reach out ako sa mga taong yun, and I used it using the mind, no? So the brain. So parang yun, nag-appeal sa kanila yun. And then there was yung kay Baron Butsukoy, his style was using emotions. Kasi yung mga galit na galit yung mga tao doon sa mga kapalpakan ni Noy, ganyan. So tingnan nyo, yung mga oligarchs, ganyan. So heart yung ginamit niya. Heart. Ito yung ginamit namin sa Reform Minute, mostly the belly Chan. Yung mga
maganda tong idea ni Ryan, ni Gab Ian. Sabi niya DILG should partner with BARM in information dissemination education for a federal parliamentary system ASAP. Sa bagay, gaano katagal na ba ang BARM? Medyo 2 years na yata. Meron na tayong actual existing parliamentary system within di ba?
We have to and I say this as you being part of the DILG team, you should really make use of that, the BARM, kasi and really kami sa correct, we're rooting for the success of BARM. Not only because we have a lot of Bangsamoro members as well in correct, but
yun yung proof of concept natin
proof of concept natin to
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, we really invested in making BARM succeed also, because we want to prove, look, mababa yung numbers ng COVID sa look, maganda yung kanilang sistema blah blah blah. So we really need to make use of the good examples that are there in BARM, and then also show that, look, BARM also wants to to attract a lot of investors. Unfortunately, hindi sila nakaka-attract ng investors dahil sakop pa rin sila under the 1987 Constitution. So kahit na ba ang BARM ay may parliamentary system sa kanilang region, part pa rin ng Pilipinas ang BARM, so under pa rin sila sa 1987 Constitution. Yung mga 60-40 na yan, nagiging sagabal sa pagpapasok ng maraming mga investors na gusto nila sanang pumasok.
Right.
Diba? Sa totoo lang, ang daming mga galing sa ibang Islamic countries na gustong tumulong sa BARM. Gusto magpadala ng mga sa UAE, sa mga Qatar, sa mga Saudi Arabia, gusto nila magpadala ng mga investor. Problema, 60-40. Nandiyan pa rin. Pero kung pumasok
so diba? hindi pala independent totally ang BARM. Meron pa
under pa rin sila sa Constitution ng Pilipinas.
Ayun
so
lang.
yung 60-40 ng Article 12 na yan, yung mga 60-40, in effect sa BARM. In effect pa rin sila sa BARM. So even if BARM's leaders want to bring in investors galing sa mga brother Islamic Muslim countries, 'di ba? Hindi nila mapapadala ng madalian. Kasi nakaharang pa rin yung 60-40.
Oo nga, correct.
Diba?
I'm just gonna read some of the other messages here, Orion, before we wrap things up. Alam ko, medyo ang haba ng week mo. At ayaw natin mapagod si Orion. Meron pa Sabi ni Almond Bullena, tama, walang nagpe-pressure sa mga reps and senators. Kaya petiks ang mga kumag. Masaya sila kasi may pagpapatuloy nila ang korupsyon sa mga susunod na taon. Sa bagay, totoo naman, may katotohanan din yung mga sinasabi ni yung reklamo ni Almond dahil kaya mahirap para sa mga mambabatas natin na mag-institute ng mga reforms is because the existing system is making them thrive already. So if you are already benefiting from the current system, why would you change it? Diba? Yun yung mga very, kumbaga, mga valid questions that we have to ask ourselves. Sabi ni Alf Ed, dapat may tao sa Kongreso or congressman na magpasa ng constitutional change to parliamentary form of government. Di ba merong mga efforts na ganyan nung panahon ni GMA Orion?
Yes.
Kaso na baril?
Yeah. So yeah, she was pushing. Actually, yung time ni GMA, it was full 3-point agenda that she was pushing for 2005.
Right.
Ang pinupush niya is federal parliamentary na bukas sa pagpasok ng foreign direct investors. So yun talaga, federalism was already being pushed by GMA back then.
Problema lang yung kanyang popularity.
Sinisiraan siya ng ABS-CBN dati at wala tayong social media noong time na yun. So there was no way to counteract the false narratives that were being painted about her.
Pero mababa ratings ni GMA noon. Yung time na yun medyo masama yung sa kanya, yung
sinisiraan nga siya, sinisiraan lagi siya ng mass media na owned by the oligarchs. But if you think about it, actually, sa totoo lang, GMA was the reason why they were very actively trying to destroy GMA was because GMA was, to begin with, very popular. She was very popular when she started. I mean, when she was a senator, there was one particular election.
Yeah,
I think
he was number one.
Number one siya. Ang laki-laki ng nakuha niya vote.
Top vote getter.
Tapos when she ran for vice president, she also had the largest number of votes as well. Talo pa niya si Erap.
Yeah.
In terms of number of votes. So and she played her cards right. Now, how did she do it? She took advantage of her name recall. Makapagal.
The association with Nora Honor.
Nora Honor, yung style ng yung posing niya sa mga sa mga posters niya, Nora Honor. So and then this is the thing that many people don't know, but those people who met her in real life, when she visited the provinces, she could converse in so many different Filipino languages. Kung
Mm.
adto siya binisaya sa lugar nga Bisaya,
Mao ba?
Bisaya siya puro. Kay balo siya magbinisaya. Kay
Okay.
kabalo siya magbinisaya, kay bawo siya mag-Ilonggo.
Mao ba?
Sumato siya sa Negros, kibaw siya. Oo. So muna believe
Multilingual kay siya. Ah,
multilingual siya. I'm a multilingual. I'm also a polyglot. I I am nothing compared to her. I am nothing
mm,
compared to her. Ako madaya lang ako ang Espanyol, malapit ang Espanyol sa French ng konti, malapit din siya sa Italiano. Kaya marami akong alam kasi magkakalapit lang sila sa Espanyol eh. Ang
oo.
Portuguese malapit din sa Espanyol. Pero si GMA, ha? Ang Ilonggo at saka Cebuano magkakalapit. Okay, that granted, that's true. But Kapampangan, of course she speaks Kapampangan because she's Kapampangan.
Mm.
She speaks Ilocano.
Ilocano pod.
She speaks Pangasinan. She knows how to speak.
Ah.
She knows how to speak Chabacano as well. Her
Ah,
Spanish is flawless.
Maranao.
I don't think maybe she knew some phrases, but maybe she did not know how to converse in fluent Maranao, but she could speak in Chabacano, and she could
Mm.
also speak in Bicolano as well, if I'm not mistaken. So she was able to do Waray, and then Waray, because it's similar to Ilonggo. She was also able to do the same. So magaling si GMA sa ganyan. Kaya nga maraming I don't know if you all remember, there were several times na ang Congress, when she did a SONA, standing ovation lagi sila sa kanya
Mm.
because she deals with each and every congressista in a way that makes them realize that she cares about their areas. When she
Mm.
speaks, when she speaks to a Waray congresista, she will speak in Waray. When she speaks to a Cebuano, she speak in Cebuano. The
Mm.
crowds, that's why she won overwhelmingly in areas na Cebuano speaking. Kay ano man siya, ba siya ng Binisaya, mag-campaign trail siya, magbinisaya siya. And she
Interesting,
took advantage. She took advantage of her varied roots. No? Okay, her father is Kapampangan, but her mother's mother was living in Iligan, and
Mm.
she would spend her summers in Iligan, so she still learned Cebuano.
Kuya, po imong knowledge about GMA Orion. You're very well versed with
I saw
see.
some of her videos. I watched some of her videos. Kuyawa ning tawana oy. Kita ko siya mga video. Kuyaw jud gayo niya. I heard before, I already heard stories and I did not believe them very much. Then suddenly, recently, I saw the videos. Those were the proof na she was not reading how some people, they just read a script, ganun.
Mm.
Ilocano siya nga may script, basahon lang niya.
Siya
Dili
gyud
iya
internalized yun niya.
yeah.
Oo.
Diba, and she could converse good. She could converse.
Maayo.
Really converse.
She,
I mean, that's why she was very popular, and that's why the mass media owned by the oligarchs really tried to destroy her, because they knew that if they did not do that, she would really be able to do whatever she wanted in terms of, she would be very influential.
na,
Okay.
na hello Garci Manggod.
Oh, that's why they did that. That's why they planted all that. That they tried to destroy her with everything that they could, because they wanted to cast doubt on her. Because if they did not do that, she practically could have a blank slate.
Mm.
She could have a blank slate. Why? She was popular among the masa because of her Nora Honor, makapagalang apelyido. Tapos she was also popular with academia because she was a PhD.
And people, I don't know, unbeknownst to a lot of Filipinos, fiscal discipline started with GMA.
Yes.
Diba? The reason why we are so stable financially, ang Pilipinas, dagantag reserves, because GMA started the whole thing. Medyo, the next administrations reaped the benefits of what she did. She set the foundation for fiscal stability sa atong bansa, no? Tama.
Indeed.
Si Nels,
that's why the detractors really wanted to put her down, because unbeatable siya eh. Sa popularity pa lang, sa ability to convince provincial crowds because of her multilingual abilities. Plus, PhD pa yun siya. Meaning,
Economics.
an academic. So parang, formidable jud kayo. Meaning to say, you know, you've got
She's brilliant. Ingon sa
brilliant.
former cabinet members,
Brilliant
people
jud
that
kayo
you know, sila Secretary Gary, sila Bobby Capco, Sir Bobby. They've been, you know, saying how, you know, kuya gid siya, no?
Kuyaw jud siya. Kuyaw jud kayo siya.
She was a very good technocrat, kumbaga sa
Yes,
GM.
yes. I have
Sabi
another friend na taga Cagayan de Oro who owns a parang software company. He's also an IT guy. He owns a software company that was supplying services to the DBM, no? And believe kay siya kang GMA. He really, like when I was talking to him, he was really saying that grabe kay siya ka ano, can you know her
cerebral
foresight and analytical skills. Para siyang she already knows what to expect, and she sees 50 chess moves in advance, something like that ba yung ano, that's why they wanted to put her down.
And her work ethic is talagang ibang klase rin.
Yes.
Sabi ni Nelson Alolino, sir, sana ma-reach out sa Congress, lower Senate. Kaso ayaw ng Congress na i-amend ang 1987 Constitution. Paano mapaabot sa Senator and Congressman? We are trying, actually, we're in the process of lobbying that. We're still working on it. Siyempre may mga may mga challenges pa tayo at this time because we're still talking about the budget for next year. And for us to be able to promote next constitutional reform next year, we need to have the funding for it as well. So next week, Orion, is the BICAM meeting between the Senate and Congress so that they can consolidate their budget and finalize it. So we're hoping that it will be included also na magkaroon ng pera para sa constitutional reform. Sabi ng isang viewer natin, Orion, pwede ba 1 vote per barangay sa presidente para pwede wala na boto, maglinya na lang sa open field kung sino bubutohin doon sa barangay nila para walang daya. Okay rin. Sabi ni Alric Kahukom, been following you since Anti-Pinoy. Kuya, good ka no?
Anti-Pinoy was this blog that's actually how Correct started. So I started my Correct articles there. And then offshoot lang yun siya ang Correct became basically an offshoot of that.
Sabi ni Vajame Basinakra, kaya bumoto ng pro-charter change na congressman at senator. Yun. Tama.
At ito pa, sa lahat ng mga tao, impluwensyahan ninyo lahat ng mga kandidato na maging pro-constitutional reform. Na parang sabihin niyo, ipakita nyo sa kanila, mas dadami ang susuporta sa inyo kapag nag-pro-constitutional reform kayo. So, ganoon. Ipakita natin sa kanila. Tapos, ipuntahan natin yung kanilang mga Facebook account, yung lahat ng mga politiko. Mag-spread kayo ng mga links about constitutional reform. Bakit importante yan? Mag-comment kayo sa kanilang mga pahina, sa kanilang mga profile, sa kanilang mga pages. Ipakita ninyo na gusto natin na magkaroon ng constitutional reform. Mai-influensyahan sila.
At saka you can start, kasi alam mo, here's just a tip, no? If you're gonna engage a stranger on social media, usually kasi may defense mechanism kagad ng isang tao, lalong-lalo na kung hindi ka niya kilala. So kung basta banat ka na ng Constitutional Reform Corps, first initial reaction yan, who the hell are you to tell me what to think? Or ano ba yung sinasabi mo? Wala naman akong alam dyan. Kaibiganin mo na ninyo. Bigyan nyo ng panahon na parang, uy, diba?
Well,
medyo...
Paminsan may opening eh. Pag may pinag-usapan na topic, at alam ninyo na yung topic na yun ay may kinalaman sa constitutional reform. Kunyari yung topic reklamo. Bakit napapuwersa ang maraming taong mag-OFW? Pasok ngayon kasi walang trabaho eh. Dahil sa 1987 Constitution yung 60-40 niya, pinagbabawal ng pagpasok ng mga investor. Kaya puwersado mga Pilipinong maging OFW, kaya ganyan. Kailangan baguhin, blah, 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 blah. Ganon.
So, dapat medyo may konting patience tayo. Pakinggan muna natin yung kanilang mga hinanakit. Tapos, ano pala nangyayari dyan sa inyo? Dapat ganun ang mga tanong. Bakit ano problema? Ganun ba? Grabe pala no dyan sa inyong sa inyong lugar. At talaga OFW ka? Kamusta ka naman dyan? Medyo bigyan nyo ng konting mag-establish tayo ng rapport sa ating mga
that's why the approach really is as much as possible we should actually first talk to our friends and our family members. So, ang uunahin nating impluwensyahan ay yung mga kakilala natin. Unahin muna nating impluwensyahan ang mga kamag-anak natin. Kasi yun, kilala na tayo eh. So, pag-usapan natin yung mga ito, bakit importante ang mga constitutional reforms, etc., etc., sa kanila. And then sila, gagawin din nila yan sa kanilang mga kaibigan, and eventually it will reach people who are in influential positions.
Right.
Because friends of theirs or relatives of theirs also told them. So, ganon.
Okay, so Orion, let me just thank a few people here before we end our program. Si Kadran Agoncillo, salamat sa pag-send ng mga mensahe. Si Gab, si Roldan, si Dominic, thank you so much for posting a message. Si Fel Fresco, yung mga taga yata to, correct movement yata to, Orion. Tapos si Lani, sabi ni Lani, good morning guys, it's worth listening to you both. Thanks for spreading this information to our countrymen. You're right, federal parliamentary system is what we need. Since di rin ako naka-base sa New Zealand, di rin ako na-appreciate na much better ang parliamentary government. Di ba? Natin mga Pilipino na who are living in another country now and who appreciate the form of government of that country that they live in. Like, meron isang guy rin na
I was going to say that's where yung OFWs who are living in countries that use a parliamentary or a federal parliamentary form of government, that's where you come in influencing your friends and relatives back home to really try to understand. Tell them your personal experience, why it's better, why I could see, para bang ikaw, pakita mo na talagang nakikita ako na mas accountable talaga sa ako mismo naka-attend ako ng session, ganyan pakita mo.
Ang example na Orion, kanang don't go hardcore right away na parliamentary systems, did you explain the technical aspect? Don't go that way, bro, kay ma-turn off dahil na, like for example, if I were to convince let's say a girl na maganda ang football, I won't talk to her about football and the technical aspect of how the game is played. I will tell her about the players, how good looking they are. Diba? You should start with something that you think they will like about it. So if you're going to talk about, let's say if you live in Canada and they happen to have a parliamentary system, tell them about how it is living in Canada first. Tapos find something that you think that this person will like about it. And if you found that thing that you think that will interest them, then you make them become interested by saying na alam mo dito sa Canada ang dali ng aming ang health system namin, napaka-efficient. Ganun ba? Oo, pag may sakit yung ang anak mo, walang bayad, diretso sa hospital. The state will cover it. Pero alam mo bakit kaya ng Canada 'yon? Kasi ganito yung sistema sa Canada. May entry point ka na kaagad. Di ba, Orion?
Yes,
if you're gonna discuss these things and you become a real champion for constitutional reform, you have to be smart about it. You can't just be, all high and mighty na, ako, dami kong alam, ikaw, wala kang alam, ito yung constitutional reform, take it or leave it. Hindi dapat ganun. Dapat talagang hanapin mo yung common ground. No? You have to sell it, di ba? Orion? You have to really sell it.
Of course. And I think that's what a lot of our people are doing now. Actually, ang style has always been, ang pasok mo, unang-una, ang pasok mo o di sa mga kilala mo na. Secondly, kung papasok ka naman dun sa ibang tao, it's usually because meron talagang napag-uusapang topic na related na doon sa constitutional reform. So, ganun lang naman siguro kasimple yun. I mean, hindi naman I was gonna say also, who's the guy who started the ASCALs? I think that's the thing about
the young husbands, diba?
no. Who's the guy? Who's the guy who started it? Na yung the guy kasi he's the guy who got the young husbands. I forgot his name.
The guy who invested in it.
Invested in it. Yeah. So
Mm.
his strategy was very good when he was basically getting yung mga tisoy na ng mga players from abroad sa Pinoy, because that's how he was able to get the attention. Kasi nga ay mga gwapo ang mga may naging celebrity din sila on their in themselves, no? So yeah, that approach actually worked. In fact, that's why the Ascals became very, very popular at that point in time. I'm just hoping that it continues kasi sayang kasi meron talaga tayong chance eh. Mas may chance tayo sa football.
May chance talaga tayo sa football. Parang yan medyo may kahit pa yung level of interest with football and constitutional reform at this stage medyo the same. Can you
yes.
If we were able to convince more people to like football, I think the same people will be susceptible to understanding what constitutional reform is all about. Diba?
Yes,
right?
yes, indeed. Actually, when I started my first article about constitutional reform, it was in 2010, middle of 2010, right after the World Cup. And my article was precisely about the need for the Philippines to shift from basketball to football and from presidential to parliamentary. So I did that kind of analogy na parang mas bagay talaga sa atin kasi hindi naman tayo matatangkad. Mas maganda sa mas bagay talaga sa physique natin yan. So we need to make the shift. In the same way, our society is a little too personality oriented, and using a very personality oriented system like the parliament, like the presidential system, is destructive because it becomes also showbiz politics. Whereas if we use a system like the parliamentary system, we can end up counteracting the showbiz mentality of Filipinos, because people will be forced to look at platforms this time. So yung sabi ko,
parang unsa man kagyud. I mean, do you want a person na na may lang? I mean, in the surface, murag what's the word for it? Impressive, kay he's good looking, or you want somebody with substance na if you talk to this person, you get value out of it. Kay kana man gid at the end of the day, kana man gid atong dapat i-discuss. Are you gonna go for somebody who is just popular, who is nice to look at, who sounds good,
celebrity type, diba?
Tapos ikaw nalingaw sa iya, but the rest of your 365 days is full of misery because you can't lift yourself out of the rut that you are in, diba? Or you go for somebody who is not as attractive, or who is not popular, pero everything that he does naman is for your own good, diba?
Yes.
So that's a basic question that people should ask. Who are you going for? Because if you're going for the person with substance, then you'll have to really change the system to start with, because we can't find people who have substance in this current system because it really won't thrive. The person, diba?
I think I was gonna go so that we go full circle with the topic, no? And we were talking really about the US when he started.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
For the case of the US, they really need to change their system. I mean, I think this should be among the last elections na naka presidential pa rin sila. I think they really need to seriously consider a parliamentary system. I mean, people are thinking of getting rid of the electoral college or changing the system. If they want to change the system, go parliamentary. That's my advice for the US. And if the US is able to do it, Latin America will also think, if the US is changing, we should change too. And most likely the Philippines will also decide to change. Magpa-parliamentary na rin tayo kung nag-parliamentary ang US.
And we should learn. I think the reason we set you up with what's happening in the US, kahit na wala naman talaga tayong pakialam doon kung sino ang maging presidente, meron, syempre, kailangan rin natin consider na may effect sa atin yun as a country because America has that much influence over the world. So whoever they vote for president will play a part in the near future, what's gonna happen in terms of policy. Isang reason kaya gusto natin ng presidente ay iboto nila yung tama is because what is kumbaga what's in line is kagaya ng may nagsabi nga Orion just recently, kung manalo si Trump, goodbye goodbye carbon emission. kasi nag-withdraw na ang US dahil kay Trump sa Clean Air Act.
Oh.
So yung mga ganyan mga bagay na may effect sa atin. Pero kung tutuusin, we can manage. And we need to manage our affairs well. So we need to use the American model as a teachable moment for the rest of us. Because if you want us to develop and you want us to evolve as a democracy, let's follow the older democracies before us like the UK. In that system, we were able to become, kaya ka sabi sa akin nung may nakilala ko Orion na English, na British, this was like years ago, he had like a couple of anong tawag na sa beer? Pint. Yeah, pint. We had a pint, and then he started talking about the UK. Ron, the UK is as small as parang one of our islands daw. It's such a small country, but we control the rest of the world. What does that say about the UK? They're far evolved than the rest of us.
They had the right system in place. That's the truth.
So if you, as a Filipino,
and the USA is just a derivative of them.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. And so are New Zealand, so are Australia. These are all, so is Canada. These are all derivatives.
And Singapore.
And Singapore as well. So they did something right. Even in fact, the other successful countries in Europe who are using parliamentary systems, they got the concept of the parliamentary system from the UK.
So, Orion, I hope hindi ka magsawa, kasi tuloy-tuloy ang ating mission every Friday. We want more people to see the light, that it's time for us to really push for constitutional reform because everything starts with the Constitution, baby.
You change the system, guys. Change the system. Everything
if you change the system, the quality of leadership will also,
the people will improve the way they vote. The kinds of politicians we get will also improve. Change the system, change the environment. You will get good people. You will get quality people, get quality leaders. It's that simple.
So guys, salamat sa inyong lahat sa pagkinig. Sana nag-enjoy kayo sa ating 2 oras na talakayan ng constitutional reform at ang ang eleksyon sa Amerika. At sana nakatulong po na pag-isipan po nyo sa weekend. At saka don't forget to talk about it if you get the chance and have these Zoom meetings, these friendly meetings or conversations with your friends and family. Make sure to wag mo naman yung biglain. Kung umabot sa politikang usapan, sabihin nyo, uy, alam mo, meron kaming pinapakinggan na programa. Kasama si Orion tsaka si Ron. Pinapag-usapan nila parati constitutional reform. Anong palagay mo? Oo, di ba? Ganyan yung mga irita. So, bye. Salamat. Goodbye.
Sige, bye.
Bye. Stay safe. Don't forget, bida ang may disiplina. Reminder ng DOH, DILG, walang mask. I-sanitize ang kamay, distansya ng 1 metro, alamin ang totoong impormasyon, bawal ang fake news, Orion, di ba? Bawal yan. Huwag natin pakinggan yung mga fake news at huwag nating ikalat, most importantly. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Salamat, bye.
And everyone else, have a good one. See you.
All
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye.